So it's been shown that arts-based learning actually is stickier in your brain. Like people forget, I don't know, there's a statistic like 95% of what they learn, like within 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
But when you apply arts-based learning to it, it's actually stickier and you'll retain it longer. So that's one of the techniques I use with my coaching. It's not like we're going to all go painting or something like that, but just a little exercise that's arts-based and then a debrief about it. And then how do you apply it to what you do? That to me is the secret formula. And that's an area that I focus on.
Welcome to the Coachability Code podcast. This is your host, Jordan Ring. Coaches, you ready to be coached? Let's go. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being here for another episode of the Coachability Code podcast. I'm pumped for this one. Just super excited to talk to Amy. So Amy, thank you so much for being here. If you could introduce yourself briefly for the audience before we dive into all the rest of the good stuff, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Sounds awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this. Been watching all your episodes and really pumped for this conversation. So I am a leadership team coach. So I help leadership teams not only lead, but actually team. And the reason I do that is because everybody's been so focused on the leader, right? Everybody has leadership training and we all care about hiring the right leader and all of this about leaders, but we don't actually focus on the team. And so that's what I focus on. And the reason it's so important is because people always come up to me and say, hey, my team is not creative. They're not innovative. And you know what? It actually turns out they're just not collaborative. So that's there.
No, that is already super cool. I'm already thinking of like questions that can bop around all that, but let's just get started with some icebreakers for the audience so they can get to know you a little bit. If you can answer for us, favorite book, favorite movie, and one weird thing about yourself that you don't mind sharing.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to start with my favorite book. It's called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. I don't know if you've read that. I actually listened to it as I was walking. I think it's a brilliant book. And basically, the title comes from, we only generally have about 4,000 weeks to live. And so we're all trying to manage time, and you can't manage time. And it just got me to think about time differently. Instead of writing a lot of lists and just keep focusing on trying to get better at my checking tasks off, it was like, do the thing. And it was just really brilliant. And I'm going to go re-listen to it again as I talk about it, because time management has always been a struggle for me, but love the book. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, I had to look it up because I was like, I think I read that because I remember like the cover, but I listened to it, so I didn't pick it up every time. But I like that book as well. Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Even just the premise of thinking about your life in terms of weeks to me is fascinating, and it really dials it down to, hey, I want to make something of my life, and every week counts, right? So, but definitely, I don't remember all the details about the book. It's one I definitely need to listen to again, but I remember enjoying it and remember I had some takeaways. Now, I don't really remember what those are, but I do remember it being positive. So
cool. Yeah. Okay. So
favorite movie,
right? This was a tough one for me because I'm not the kind of person that actually watches movies over and over again. So I like a movie. I'm like, wow, that was an amazing movie. And then I see another movie and then I kind of forget about that. And I just keep going on. So I'm going to go with Parasite. So that won a lot of awards, I think a couple of years ago. It's the movie out of Korea. And what I loved about it is it just caught me by surprise. So it's a social commentary and you're kind of going along, and then it turns really dark and it shocked me. And then it made me think. And I was like, that was cool. So I just I like that experience that I had with it. So that's where I'm going with today.
That's one that I keep seeing pop up and I keep having people tell me like, Jordan, did you see that yet? So yet another person that recommends that. So I need to check it out for sure. Cool. And then one weird thing about you that you don't mind sharing, or that's just most people don't know.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of weird things about me, but the one that comes to mind is I cannot pass up a challenge. If someone challenges me to something, I just have to do it because I think it sounds cool. Like I went to the airport not knowing where I was going to fly into just because I just had to do that. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Mad respect for that. That's super cool.
That was kind of fun. Like that wasn't going to kill me or anything. But the one that almost killed me is there's a Mount Washington. I grew up in the Boston area. Mount Washington is the biggest mountain on the East Coast. It's a part of it is called Tuckerman's Ravine, which is the scariest and hardest ski slope to ski, and you just carry your stuff up and go up the mountain there. And I was like, I just started snowboarding. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that snowboarding. And like, I didn't think anything of it. Other people were doing it. I mean, people die doing this. And so I hiked up there with my snowboard and some friends. And then I got all the way to the top. And then I realized, how do you put your snowboard on? It's a 45-degree angle. You can't sit down and put it on. And obviously I made it down alive, but it was like the craziest thing I did. And I just had to do it. So yeah, that's probably the weirdest and scariest thing that I do.
No, I mean, that's super cool. And that's also really brave. Amazing. Okay, that's super cool, Amy. Thanks for sharing all of those. I always like the book question. And this happens to be a book that I read before, but it's like a selfish question for me because I love to add to my to be read pile. So that's one I'll add to a re-listen. And then of course the movie as well. I'll have to check that one out. So okay, let's dig into more of what you do. I wanna like really start to answer or to ask you some questions there, but let's start with diving in a little bit deeper. Okay, Amy, someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, what do you do?" How do you describe that for someone simply? And this could just be someone that's interested in your services, or it could just be like a friend that's just curious about what you do. So I know this answer does depend on all of that, but maybe just in general, how would you answer it?
Yeah. Well, I just basically say I coach leadership teams.
Cool.
And I just like that's like the starting point, because most people coach leaders, right? Or they coach different people, but this is the whole team. And usually it's because they say we need to be faster, or we need to be more accountable, or we're not all aligned. And I think the way to think about it is not we, I grew up in high tech and in corporate for 30 plus years. We all live in silos. And I think that's the challenge, right? Leaders on leadership teams, they get there because they're really good leaders. And what are they good leaders of? They're good leaders of their domain. So you have all of these great leaders on a team, all focused on their own piece. And no one's talked about how do you actually all work together. And that's the beauty. So that's what I do. I help the teams work better together, be faster, more accountable, more aligned, which ultimately they're more creative, they're more innovative, they grow, like all of that. So that's what I do.
That's super cool. And I think it's so interesting that you work with teams. So it makes me think of the question, is there a specific member of that team that will come to you and say, Amy, I want you to work with us? Or is it someone else that works within that team or for that team or around that team somehow? Yeah. How does it come to be that you work with one of those teams?
Yeah,
like who brings you in?
It's a great question. And it could be all of those, but I find it's on the team. So someone's on the team and they know that they could do better.
Okay.
That the team could do better. And they're feeling some kind of pain, like we're not making fast enough decisions, for example. Or as I mentioned before, I usually say, we're not innovative enough. And we go in and we dig in and we're like, no, you know what? Everyone has really awesome ideas, but they're like on the cutting room floor. Like you're not listening to each other.
Yeah.
It's usually a member of the team. And leadership teams, what's the definition of that, right? It could be a lot of different things. It's usually a higher level team that's like got 6 to 12 members. And usually they all have different disciplines. So it could be like a marketing team, but it's usually more of there's a bunch of general managers and they cover different things. There's the engineering lead, then the marketing lead, and they're all of different disciplines. Usually that's the one that's more difficult to collaborate. So it's someone there. Now, it could be the HR leader that's, hey, I'm in charge of talent management and they're not working well together. And it's a mandate from the CEO. It could be that.
Okay.
Or learning and development. So those folks are responsible for training their teams. So they might come and talk to me. But I find it's most impactful when it's someone on the team we could probably do better.
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me because I've had other people on this show that are say, hey, Jordan, like I don't have my own private clients. I work for like a company that provides leadership services. And I've always found that interesting because of what you were just saying. If the person on the team comes to you and says, I want to be coached, and this is what happens in most individual bases, like when I worked with my health coach last year, it was me coming and saying, hey, I want to work with you. I have the skin in the game now of I am putting myself out there and I want to work with you. I always found it, I've been finding it fascinating when these coaches have said, oh no, Jordan, I'm getting assigned a person. And I just feel like that dynamic is so different. So even within that, I have the question of, have you found it more difficult to work with the people that have been assigned, or even within the other people in the team? I guess the question would be, if one person on the team says, oh, we need help, I would just imagine there would be some resistance potentially from other team members that feel like they're doing fine. Or have you encountered that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you said that because my head went a different place. So When someone feels the pain, like you might have with your health, or you wanted to make a change, then you sought out a coach, right? Nowadays, it's getting more common to have coaches. So
Which I love. I love that.
yeah,
I love that that's changing. It's such a good
it's
thing.
like democratizing, because it used to be only the SVP or the senior types of people. But what I was laughing about is, if you were assigned a coach back then, it probably meant you need a coach.
Yeah,
There's a real problem.
Yeah.
That nowadays, I don't think it means that it's, hey, we're investing in you and we want to help you grow. And we know how important coaching is. So when someone's assigned it, I still want to make sure that they want it, because that's the thing. You have to want to change. You have to want to learn. You have to want to grow, or coaching's not going to work for you.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand. I think the most is how, if there was someone in that position that said, I don't want this, that just would be so difficult. But I love how it's changing too, because I've had other people say that they compared the coaching of the past to getting put on some kind of behavioral plan. They mentioned being like put on a PIP and going through those things. And then it's like a punishment almost. Whereas like for me, I've never viewed coaching as that. I've always viewed coaching as this, no, I'm doing this to learn. I'm in it. I'm invested, and it's not about me having to overcome the bad things I'm doing, or it's not a punishment. It's just a positive thing. But I also know that there's a lot of people out there that don't have that perspective of coaching too. People get more defensive and have more difficulties with that. So I guess that's a whole nother question on the different layers of the difficulties that people have with being coached.
I'm sad for those people.
Yeah.
That don't, because I think as much as coaching is now much more popular and people are getting assigned, as you said, there's companies popping up and there's a lot of people doing it. A lot of people have never been coached. Most of my clients, when I talk to them, they haven't had a coach. They might say, oh, I've had a sports coach or something, which is a little bit different. So I have to explain the difference between a mentor and a coach, right? A coach doesn't tell you what to go do. You figure it out yourself. And a lot of people still, they don't understand that. Then they go through the process and then they're like, oh, that's really interesting. One person told me, oh, every time they would come up with something, they're always like, I wonder what Amy would think. And I'm always like, why do you care what I think?
Yeah.
You own your own life, right? I don't live your life. And that's the whole point. I can tell you what I did, and a lot of mentors, and mentorship is great for particular reasons. But why what I do matters to you, right? It's all about you taking ownership. And yeah, you can't blame me. You have to take ownership, make your own choices. And I think that's so empowering.
Yeah, no, I love that piece too. I mean, that's why I like coaching so much. So now that we've started talking about it, let's talk about some of your best students and then some of the worst students, and the people, students meaning the people you've worked with.
I don't have any bad students, Jordan. Sorry to say.
But nobody does. I asked that question. I was like, Jordan, I've never had a bad student. And I'm like, okay, let's push a little bit. There's definitely been someone that's frustrated you, or you don't have to name them by name, but let's talk about the good ones first. The ones that have really taken, maybe they're the ones that brought you into the team. Let's look at that. What is it about? If there's a story, they're great. But we're really looking at what is it about them that made it just so that it was a good experience for you, a good experience for them, that they were able to take your suggestions.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is, first of all, you have to want to be coached, as I said. I think it's having a growth mindset. So what I mean by that is, when I first started coaching this leadership teams, I had a leader. She was an SVP of a mid-sized company. And we start with an assessment to figure out where your gaps are. And she knocked it out of the park. Like, out of all there's 16 different criteria, she was like way out, like unbelievable. So I was like, okay, I have to do a debrief with her. And I found like this one area that, okay, she could probably do a little better here, because she's so good at making decisions. She's so fast.
Yep.
Maybe she could be a little bit more open to diverse perspectives or new perspectives, right? It's an important skill, but she was still way above everyone else. So I debriefed with her and she loved it, because I kind of nailed this very specific thing. She's, yeah, I guess I can see how I do that. She wants to get better at it. And then she's, oh, I want you to do this for my whole team. That was my first experience with, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So she had a great growth mindset. She was already so good. Like, she didn't need to, but she was like always thinking about, how can I get better? How can my team get better? So that is so exciting for me. So I'm scoring them, you're good or you're bad. It's here's where you can improve. So to me, that was just a great example. Now, I've had other examples where I get sent to maybe the HR professional and they say, oh, I'm not sure about this, or this is a new way of doing it. And I'm like, they don't have a growth mindset, right? Because they are like, oh, it's not one of the top 3 assessments we give, or you're not from the big company or all this other stuff. And I just look at them like, you're not open to new ideas. And that's fine. But those people are harder because I'll just leave it at, they don't have a growth mindset, which is all about learning and growing.
And let's talk about that a little bit more, because I feel
Yeah.
like that is, if we were going to describe it right, and what you're
Right.
just saying, that's one of the main
Yeah.
differences between the people that can be coached and the people that can't. We haven't talked about that before on
Yeah.
this podcast, as far as I remember,
Okay.
that growth mindset specifically.
Yeah.
But I think that's so interesting because that's a clear delineator, right? Of this person is going to be successful with what I can share, and this person isn't. So how do you see that right away? Because you have so much experience. That's why I love
You're
talking to
right.
people like you that
Yeah.
said, hey,
Yeah.
I've been in this for 30 plus years. Do you feel like you just know right away, like when you're
Well,
working with people?
I think you can tell when they share what their hesitations are.
Okay.
And to me, it's if they don't want to experiment. Because what I do is it's like holding a mirror up to somebody. And I've described it as you have this like soundtrack playing in your head, and it's the story you tell yourself all the time. And what I do as a coach is I kind of pull it out and I say, you said this, and
Yeah.
then you did this. And they go, oh, right. So then they become aware. And then the question is, okay, what do you want to try to change that? And some people, so we always talk about go try something, and it's the people that try it. And sometimes it fails, or sometimes it works, right? And that might not have worked, or that worked. And it's always, well, what else can we do? And the people that want to keep trying, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work the first time. Those people have the growth mindset. For other people that are, I just didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I can't do that. Then it's a little bit harder. And I did have somebody that was like that. And I almost was going to break up with that person. I don't think I can coach because every time we suggest something, you're like, no. And I was like, I think you're just happy where you are. And that's fine. Not everybody wants to change. And that person went off, and then she came back on. And in between, I looked at LinkedIn, and she had put a post about starting a new business. And I was like, where did that come from? You were all about going down this path. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, wow. And she's something you said kind of hit me. And then she's realized like what bad could come from this, and then did it. So you don't always know how the conversation goes. And they always say the best coaching happens between the sessions, not always during the session. So sometimes people take time to think about things and then make changes.
And I think it's like not putting, where possible, not putting those time constraints on it to say, oh, we need to figure this out by this. Because, yeah, I feel like everyone has a different way of learning and different way of taking in new ideas. And what we were talking about earlier, maybe people haven't been coached before. And I feel like it's different for people that are in sports and have some kind of sports background. We're so used to that, right? We're used to having someone tell us in the moment, hey, this is what you do. This is how to get better at this.
Yeah,
But I think for people that don't have that sports background, I feel like it really is sports, like specifically. And I know there's other things, like I did music in high school too. And I think there's corollaries there, but there's something about that sports coaching that is just, it just hammers it into you early. So let's talk about that a minute. What's your experience with that? Do you feel like if you had sports coaching early on, because I know you do sports now, you're very athletic.
Yeah, I grew up that way. So I'll tell you, when I first got a coach, I had never heard of a coach, an executive coach. I hadn't heard of that. I've had like coaches for sports, like you said, for soccer and everything, right? For me, the situation was I was a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I grew up like, I will say, a lot of people, especially a lot of women and girls, we grow up to be perfect. There's a saying that boys grow up to be brave and girls grow up to be perfect, right? That's kind of how we get trained. Hopefully that's changing in this world. So I was a perfectionist, and something didn't go well at work. They wanted me to change my style. Instead of being perfect, go into the agile, which is about failing fast. And I don't fail. I was a perfectionist, right? And so I was pretty down and low and everything like that, probably the lowest part of my career. And someone said, you should give me a card, go call my friend. She's a coach. And I never heard of that. And as soon as I met her, I was like, wow, I could tell she wasn't just telling me what to do. She was getting me to think, and why do I feel that way or whatever. And it changed my whole life, which is why I'm a coach now. It's a full circle. I want to give back because it gave so much to me.
No, that's an amazing story. And I feel like so similar in some ways, like just the coaching in various areas that I had, even within the last couple of years, for me, it's wow, I really want to do this more because it gets so rewarding. And there's so many like light bulb moments you realize about yourself that apply to so many different areas. Getting health coaching, it helped me to become a better service provider, a better book coach myself for what I do. with people,
Yeah.
just having that experience and going through it. So I think it's it's
You
amazing.
don't realize, like when you coach somebody, like like the way I practice it, where you have to self-manage. You're not supposed to put your own ideas into the person's head, but you're learning as well, right? So you're like, oh, I have that. Might be, oh, I kind of struggle with that too. You see how that person reacts, and how might I do that? So by coaching other people, you can actually get better yourself.
And I think doing it and being not too tied to the process, I feel like that's something that has been super beneficial for what I do for ghostwriting with people. And people ask me, what's your process? Okay, I have a process, but this process changes every time because I am
Yeah,
constantly evolving and constantly learning.
right,
And all the other parts of the process, outwardly, the marketing and all that, are constantly changing as well. So we have to be
right,
constantly evolving and adapting to that. And I think some of the best coaches are aware of that, right? That I
right,
can't just
right.
be static. Even if I knew how to do something, even you could have been the best person in the world at X, Y, or Z.
Yeah,
But then 5 years go by and you're still teaching it the same way. Hey, have you
right.
considered how AI impacts this? Well, no, it works how it works. I'm like, well, maybe not. So I think
Yeah.
the more agile you can be with that, the better. And I think people recognize that more and more, or they are recognizing it, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. I think the secret is just being curious, right? And if you
Mm.
think you know everything about something, you're not very curious. So sometimes it's easier to coach people that are completely different than you. And then you can really get in there and find out and be just really curious. So yeah,
No, I like that last part. That's super cool.
yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about breakthrough moments. If you can think of any that your clients or your teams have had. If any come to mind, what brought it on? Was it a specific spark that you may have said, or maybe you don't know exactly what it was? I'm just curious if there are any that come to mind that your clients or your teams had.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't most or all of my clients have breakthroughs, and there's different levels of breakthroughs, right? Some is just like a
Hmm.
little thing that even a micro breakthrough can change, right? And just be the domino that falls that
Yep.
changes everything. I guess the one that I'm thinking about is actually pretty recent. And this person works in a corporate role. And we were doing some visioning about where she sees her future self and that type of thing. And she realized that this hobby of hers, which was cooking, is actually her passion,
Hmm.
and more than a passion, but wants it to be her business. And I watched her just in our first, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes get that realization. And then we came up with some homework of things to go try. And the next thing you know, she's got the name of her company out there. She's built out her website and she's building out her menu for Thanksgiving. And it literally was a couple weeks ago. And now she's a business. And it was like, wow. And it's just the self-limiting thoughts that
Yeah.
just help her kind of have that breakthrough.
And I think those self-limiting thoughts, wow, can really stop you.
Yeah.
I've known that for myself in my life in various areas. And I could even see it. I'm like, I don't think that I can be more than XYZ. And then as
Yeah.
soon as you realize that, you're like, okay, I can attack that thought. But sometimes it
Right.
takes that coach coming in and saying, or maybe not even saying anything. Maybe it's just asking a question, or like you said before, being
Yeah.
curious, asking you the
Yeah.
question, and then you have to answer. Like, you're right.
Yeah.
You didn't say
We
anything, but
all
you're
have,
right.
yeah, we all have those. And it's
Yeah.
just the exercise, like what would happen if that wasn't true? And just that brings me to another part of what I do is I do arts-based learning. And part of that is the self-limiting beliefs. Everybody thinks they're not creative. Unless you're an artist or a graphic designer. If you mostly think right brain, then you're a creative, right? But for all of us that kind of grew up left brain, so I have engineering background, I was just like, oh, I can't draw, I can't do music, I can't do any of that. And I took a drawing class and that changed my life. I changed my perspective. And the first drawing was not great, but as I kept doing it, I was like, wow. And then I was really impressed. I can do it. And that was a self-limiting belief.
Hmm.
Like I'm not creative. And now I play music, I write songs, I do all of this stuff that if I hadn't taken a drawing class, my whole world would have been so much more closed.
So one of my next questions was, what areas have you been coached, and how has this
Yeah.
helped you become a better coach? But I think even we'll ask the question for that
Yeah.
specifically, like for that drawing class, because I know we talked about this before, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
your story with this.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
has that whole experience helped? How have you taken that maybe specifically into what you
Yeah.
do?
Well, it's the whole
Schooling.
example of the domino. So, like I told you
Yeah.
about this experience of being coached as when I thought I wasn't doing well at work, right? I got the growth mindset. So I'm not a perfectionist anymore. And a growth mindset's all about, oh, you can fail. And I was like, okay, what else am I really bad at? I don't think I'm creative. And I had read a book that said, AI is going to take over the world. Sort of true, right? Ish, right?
Yes. I mean, yeah.
But the skill you need is the creativity, the empathy, that type of thing. So that inspired me to take the drawing class. And then that drawing class inspired me to play music and do all this other things. So when I decided to be a coach, I said, I need to do something with this creative spirit, because when I tell the story to people are always, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, yes, you can. Like, creativity is a skill that you can learn and get better at it. So that's where that drawing led me to this arts-based learning. So I'm a certified innovation coach, where I help people with that using arts-based learning. So that's where the drawing like ended up being part of my profession now. So it's just an amazing kind of full circle way.
I love that title so much. I love the innovations coach, because I've not heard of other people with that. I'm sure there are other people that do that. I love that as like a part of what you do, especially because it is, you do work in leadership and you do work with teams, and you're like, no, but I can bring this innovation, because it matches what you shared in the very beginning, that you help teams overcome that lack of creativity, or like lack of, I don't know what we can do with this. So I feel like it's a natural pairing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, art helps you with your self-limiting beliefs. That's the first exercise I usually do with people. It takes 5 minutes, and people see that they had this limiting belief, I'm not creative. So that's kind of like the first step. So it's been shown that arts-based learning actually is stickier in your brain. Like, people forget, I don't know, there's a statistic like 95% of what they learn within 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
But when you apply arts-based learning, it's actually stickier and you'll retain it longer. So that's one of the techniques I use with my coaching, is it's not like we're going to go painting or something like that, but just a little exercise that's arts based, and then a debrief about it. And then how do you apply it to what you do? That to me is the secret formula. And that's an area that I focus on.
And do you kind of do that with your teams as an icebreaker in the beginning, or how do you work that in? Because I mean, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. It's interesting. It could be an icebreaker, but it is usually the beginning. So we do that and people experience it. And then we debrief and say, what did you learn from that? Right. And they talk about maybe the drawing part of it. And then what do you learn from it? Right. You learn something, and they say, now apply it to, what's the project you're all working on? How do you apply that? Then they have the conversation about that. That's the beauty, because they all went through this experience together. They all have an aha, and then they can go further with whatever their topic was that they've all been struggling with.
Oh, I mean, that's super cool. I just love how you work that in. I feel like that would be super helpful for teams. Also, not something that everyone comes in and does, right? Because it's it's very easy to come in and do like a textbook by the book meeting, but you're coming in, no, we're gonna actually practice and experiment with a little bit of innovation, a little bit of creativity here, which is what you're trying to help them with anyway. But I think that's a great fit. Makes a lot of sense.
I think it's all about like show, don't tell, right? And I think that's with coaching, like telling people why coaching is amazing, telling people why arts-based learning is amazing. It's all good, but that's not how people learn. People learn by doing things and experiencing things. So I think that's the secret.
No, that's super cool. So let's talk about your coaching business and what have you done? Because I know coaches are very interested in this. Everyone's trying to grow their business. Everyone's trying to not necessarily get more clients, but find the right fit, find the people that they can really help and they can really work with. So what has been your best strategy for doing that? Either something you're working on now, or that's something that's worked in the past?
Yeah. So it's going to maybe sound so obvious, I guess. It's don't try to sell. Be authentic. I am so passionate about what I do. When I talk to people, I'm not even trying to sell. People ask me, tell me more. Can I get on your calendar? What could you do here? People are so interested. And then they seem to always say, I know someone that could use you. So I think it's just showing up authentic and passionate about what you do. And then giving the examples of how you've helped others and the breakthrough, I think really helps. So I don't know. It's probably not a great answer, but I think showing up authentic and not forcing the conversation. I think you want people to find you versus you forcing yourself on others. But I do think you got to find the right opportunity. So being on a podcast, perhaps, or being speaking opportunities, writing a book, all of those things so people can hear your voice, I think is important. But it's not forcing it, because I think if you're true to yourself, authentic, that I think people want to work with you.
And Amy, honestly, I'll give you a shout out for this. We met in person at a business conference a few months ago, And I honestly felt your authenticity like right away. And I feel like not everyone does that naturally. Okay, some people have to work at it. Like I get that. Like I'm more of an introvert. Maybe I'm not going to be like, authentic naturally, even though I've been able to get better with that over the years. But I think you do that so well. Honestly, of all the people that I met at the business conference, I remembered you. I had that takeaway. You communicated, you were looking at me and interested in what I was saying, and all of those simple things, those simple soft skills that people take for granted. I think you did really well. And it's something that more coaches, I think, if you at least gain awareness in the areas that you're not as efficient or not as good at showing your authenticity, because everyone has a story, everyone can be authentic, everyone can be themselves, but a lot of people aren't because of whatever, because of fears, because of they don't want to show up as their normal selves. But you just show up as yourself, as you are. And I think that's, for me, that's how I remember people, and that's how other people remember people. And that's how you build connections at conferences, on podcasts. I mean, just show up and talk and share your story, and don't feel like everything you say has to be perfect. I don't know. There's a lot there, I think, but I think all that to say, you do that very well. And I think that anyone listening to this podcast should connect with you for that reason, if they want to work with someone that's authentic. So,
well, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, I really appreciate that. And I don't want people to think that you have to be an extrovert. And I'm not even sure. I probably am an extrovert, but some people say I might be an introvert. But it's not like about being the loudest person or the showiest person. Just even for introverts, right? I want you to realize that it's the general connection, genuine connection, like being so authentic and showing you care and just really connecting, I think will be memorable. And it's not the selling part of it. So I don't want you to think, or people to think you have to be an extrovert to do it, but I think it's genuine connection, I think is really important. And I think that's why we connected. I remember meeting you as well. I was super impressed with you. I've been telling everybody about you as the book coach that I know. And I loved the conversation we had.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. And I love that conversation because we could do a whole podcast on introverts and extroverts, but I think there's good and bads to both. Some extroverts are talking to everyone, and then their attention is like this, right? Like they're automatically looking. And if you're not aware of that, there's not an authentic connection there. You're just having those 30-second conversations with everyone, and then no one's remembering you at the end. But on the other extreme, if you're an introvert that doesn't talk to anyone, also no one's going to remember you. So I think it's like figuring out what works for you. And I know that's so cliche, but especially with connecting with people, it has to be that. And I'm not going to meet everyone at a conference. I'm just not. But I want to have a deeper connection with the people that for whatever reason, I just gravitate towards, and we have a good conversation. So, no, let's build that relationship. So,
well, it's quality over quantity, right? You can build a business with a smaller set of clients, right? Just deliver more for them, right? So it's not just always about mass, right? But be differentiated and storytelling too, which you do amazing, right? I mean, it's all about telling stories and connecting with people.
Yeah, no, 100%. I always want on this show for people to be able to say what they want to say. I want you to be able to get out what you want to get out. So if you have a soapbox, feel free to stand on it. It doesn't have to be about coaching, business, and leadership. If it is, that's great. But if it's something you're really passionate about, and I think you've already talked about a lot of things you're passionate about, so it doesn't have to be anything new. But if there's something, I would love to hear it.
I do have something I want to say. So my soapbox, it's about coaching. People think you need coaching when you're in crisis mode. And I thought that too. Like I was in crisis mode. Someone's like, you need to see a coach. So I saw a coach, right? But then when people like get through their challenge or they get a new job or whatever they want, they're like, okay, I'm done, right? Coaching is so much more than that. I mean, coaching is about growing and getting to the next level. So I am so glad that I did that coaching when I was in crisis mode, but now I have coaches as well. They always say coaches have coaches, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it helps you grow and get better because no one's perfect, right? And if you want to do the sports analogy, Serena Williams, she still has a coach. Coaches have coaches. So, and it's not because they are always in crisis, but they're always trying to get that little bit better. So I guess my soapbox is go see a coach before you're in crisis mode. So you don't go through the crisis and you learn and grow. And I just watch, no matter when people come to me, like I love to watch how they have breakthroughs on things they didn't even know were kind of holding them back. And they just grow, and it's amazing. So I guess that's my soapbox.
No, I love that soapbox. And I think, you're spot on with that, honestly. And there's some things where if you come to coaching in crisis mode, you almost shouldn't be going into coaching. You should be going to a deeper level. You should be going to therapy, or you should be going to something else. And because we've talked about that before on the show, that line between like coaching and therapy. And if someone is in crisis mode, then how I'm not gonna be able to help you as a book coach if you're in crisis mode, if
Right.
you're lacking any kind of budget. Hey, you got other things to focus on, right? And that's specific to
Right.
book coaching, but I think it is the same way with teams and leadership and whatnot. If the company is going under, sure, there's things that you can do to help them through
Right.
that.
Right.
But the most beneficial is from what you're saying, from, hey, I want to improve. We're doing
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and we want to go to that next level. Doesn't have to be the utmost, the highest level, but it's something, right? It's an improvement from where you are. So
Yeah. I now feel like I have to have a disclaimer. If you're in crisis mode, coaching might not be for you, because coaching, I was kind of
yeah.
moving flippantly, but yeah, if you want to make a change or you want to grow, like that's perfect opportunities for coaching. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Amy,
Okay.
this episode has been fantastic. Unless there's something else another soapbox you want to jump on, I want to just
One
ask you.
soapbox is enough.
Okay, what is it up? Okay, that's fine. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? And then if you have something that you have going on right now, feel free to share that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'd love to connect with people. So you can find me on my website at amyswotinsky.com. So pretty easy to find there. And on LinkedIn. I love to use LinkedIn. And when I'm posting, I love to hear the feedback and have a conversation. So I am interested in talking to anyone that really interested in understanding how leadership teams can work even better. And if you're interested in innovation coaching or arts-based learning, like I'm passionate about that and always love to talk about that. So Jordan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I love chatting with you. So thank you so much.
No, this has been awesome. I think we went on some really good tangents, and yeah, I'm excited for it. So thanks so much for your time, and thank you for listening, everyone. Appreciate it.
Are you still here listening to this podcast? You're awesome. I got 2 CTAs for you. Number 1, subscribe to this podcast for more. And number 2, have you ever thought about writing a book? Contact Jordan. He can help you out. Jordan@jmring.com.